Let's get some analysis now. And joining me from Amman in Jordan is Ali Abunimah. He is the co-founder of the Electronic Intifada and the author of The Battle for Justice in Palestine book. Thanks so much for coming in on the show, Ali. I really appreciate. Let's not forget, Naftali Bennett has bragged about killing Arabs in the past. What is having a man like this in power? What does this mean for Palestinians?
For Palestinians, it's like you change the executioner. That's it. It's no different to having a new executioner. Maybe for the spectators, it makes a difference, but for the person whose head is on the chopping block, it makes absolutely no difference at all who is carrying the axe. And that's what the change of government means for Palestinians. But we're already seeing efforts to whitewash this new set of executioners in Israel by the so-called international community, who are welcoming it and even talking about hopes that there will be a peace process and revival of talks about the two-state solution and this sort of thing.
Given the type of government that is now in power in Israel, is a two-state solution impossible? Is it off the table?
Well, actually, Naftali Bennett is even further to the right of Benjamin Netanyahu on this issue. And for the past decade, Naftali Bennett has been attacking Netanyahu from the right, claiming that Netanyahu is too willing to give the Palestinians too much. Bennett's policy is the annexation of almost all of the occupied West Bank without giving Palestinians living there any rights. So effectively, it's to formalize the situation of apartheid that already exists. That's who Naftali Bennett is. But we've already seen really delusional statements from, for example, Sven Koopmans, the European Union envoy, who's talking about looking forward to working with this government on peace. We've seen similarly delusional statements from Chuck Schumer, the majority leader in the U.S. Senate, saying that he hopes that this government will swiftly move towards talking about a two-state solution. These are complete fantasies, and they're very damaging to Palestinians if people repeat them, because, as I said, this is simply a new set of hands holding the axe, but the neck of the Palestinians is still lying on the chopping block.
Right. And what about the Arab parties in Israel? Now they're also part of the coalition for the first time in history. Will conditions in Israel improve for their supporters?
Well, only one Arab party, a very opportunistic party led by a man called Mansour Abbas, joined the government. And even one of his members, I think they have, 3 or 4 members, even one of his members abstained. But this is token representation of Arabs in the government. And indeed, it is being used to whitewash the true nature of this Israeli government. The vast majority of Palestinian citizens of Israel would not support this government, and indeed the majority of lawmakers from the Palestinian community in Israel did not vote for this government.
Ali, and just briefly, I don't have much time, but I want to ask you this. What about the other Arab nations? I mean, we've seen warming of relations with Israel among some of them. Is this likely to change?
Well, I think that's not affected by the change in government. That's affected by the strength of the Palestinian resistance that we saw in the last month or so, which proved to those Arab dictatorships that the Palestinian cause is alive and well, and the Palestinian people are still struggling for their liberation, because those unrepresentative dictatorships that made deals with Israel were betting on the idea that the Palestinian cause is dead and that the Palestinians can do nothing, so you might as well get into bed with Israel. That was a huge miscalculation on their part.
Ali, thank you so much for that insight for us here at TRT World. I appreciate he's a co-founder of the Electronic Intifada and the author of The Battle for Justice in Palestine book. Thank you again.